You're listening to the Loyalty Minute, the show that helps you build better customer loyalty and more valuable user engagement, with your host, Rob Gallo.
Welcome, loyal listeners, to another episode of the Loyalty Minute. I'm your host, Rob Gallo, and today I am eager to chat with our guest, Don Fox, who's the CEO of Firehouse Subs. He's also a two-time author of Patents Vanguard, as well as a board member of the Army Historical Foundation. Welcome to the show, Don. Thanks for joining.
Hey, thanks, Rob. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Great. For those loyal listeners out there who don't know who you are, or perhaps you could share a bit of story about your background, how you landed at Firehouse Subs, as well as maybe the Army Historical Foundation. But then I want to talk about how Firehouse Subs is focusing on building a unique presence in its communities that it serves, particularly in light of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, certainly. Well, I've been in the restaurant industry all my working life. First job washing dishes in a little Italian restaurant in Lakewood, New Jersey, 46 years ago. And that wasn't going to be my original aspiration. I was either going to be a trumpet player or a history teacher. Those are two things that were on my radar screen. Went the music route in my late teens, paid the bills in restaurants, but decided at the age of 22 that being a trumpet player as a profession was not going to get me where I wanted to go, but loved what I was doing in restaurants. So I decided to focus on the industry. That took me to Burger King Corporation. At the tender age of 22, I had actually stepped back from multi-unit operations with Six Flags amusement parks and go into unit level management with Burger King. Had a pretty conventional career ascension through unit operations, multi-unit. Spent 6 years that were very critical in research and development at Burger King Corp's headquarters in Miami from 89 to 95. Went back into field operations. And then joined Firehouse in 2003. Firehouse was a lot smaller brand then. We had about 65 restaurants at the time I joined them. I brought a lot of franchising background from my experience with Burger King into that. Became Chief Operating Officer in 2005 and then CEO in 2009. And grew from, that 65 restaurants when I walked in the door now to 1,180 restaurants today. We operate in 46 states in the U.S., Puerto Rico, and Canada. So it's been quite a ride during those 17 years that I've been with Firehouse now and growing it to where it is today.
Certainly sounds like it. That's moving on up for sure.
Yes.
Good stuff.
And I was going to say, and you mentioned on the Army piece, just as an aside, not my vocation, but as I mentioned, I had an interest in history going back to my youth. And was able to, over the course of the past 20 years, author 2 books, Patents Vanguard, and then the second volume, which was just released, Final Battles of Patents Vanguard. And I've drawn a lot from those experiences of meeting veterans and being immersed in the military community, even though I never served myself, but through those relationships have applied a lot to business. So hopefully during our conversation, I can tie some of that in.
Yeah, well, it ties into loyalty. I mean, obviously, those guys wearing the uniform are loyal to the flag and to preserving the freedoms of the United States. So it's definitely interesting.
Yes.
So as we mentioned, you can't look anywhere without noticing the COVID-19 pandemic that we're up against at the moment.
Right.
And this is going off script from what we normally talk about, but I think we'll dovetail back into it. But so right now, what is Firehouse Subs doing currently to help its community members?
Well, there's a variety of things at the grassroots. And I should preface this by saying that just a key part of our brand, it's in our DNA, is the support that we do in our communities. And especially over the last 15 years or so, that's really manifested itself in the work we do with our Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation. We just surpassed the $50 million mark for equipment and support that we've donated to first responders. And that doesn't happen without the support of our guests, because in a given year, they may contribute 65-70% of the funds that come into the foundation. So we got a long heritage there. And now, over the course of the past 3 weeks, we find ourselves in a world where, well, I imagine a lot of that equipment is being used to some extent out there for things related to with with first responders and things that tie directly or indirectly to COVID. But then at the very grassroots levels, I'm hearing every day stories about our franchisees who are now working on their own and in conjunction with their guests to help feed medical staff. We just completed a $50,000 grant for helping our franchisees bring food to hospitals and other frontline staff. That is really growing almost exponentially. Again, I'm getting daily stories, often, interestingly enough, reported to us by third parties. So this in this situation we're in right now, it's so extraordinary, and there's no playbook for it. But what we find is, out of necessity, in our response to this, we've pushed a lot of decision making down to the lowest levels of the brand and the organization. This is a period of time, because of the dire situation we find ourselves in from a business standpoint as well as a health standpoint, where we have to be nimble. And what is so exciting to see is how, when even more empowered, that franchisees are even embracing even more the culture and the values, and at a time when you think they have less resources to work with, sales being down in some cases 50, 60, 70%, literally overnight. But they're finding the means and the wherewithal to offer support and feed people, first responders, people in need. It's very motivating to hear those stories.
Well, in all honesty, Don, I think it actually comes from the top down in this type of situation. To me, it's like the commander's intent. I read a book called Made to Stick, and they talk about the commander's intent. So if they want to take this hill, they just know that that's the commander's intent, to take the hill. They don't get down to the nitty gritty and tell them we need to have this battalion on the left flank and et cetera, et cetera. It trickles down through the management at that level to where the foot soldier knows what to do. So the frontline employees at Firehouse Subs seem to kind of say, this is our corporate culture. This is how we engage with people anyway. It's not something foreign to us.
Right.
That's admirable in any industry.
Yeah, I think when you're, again, this is so unprecedented what we're going through. And if you think about the role of culture and how that ties into loyalty, you have brand values. When you're building as you build a successful business and a successful brand, it's not unusual that, down the line, a brand and the team within it become more aspirational, sort of like Maslow's hierarchy. Mm-hmm. When a business is just starting out, very often it's on the most fundamental things. Like, I've got to make money, I've got to make a profit. You're just the basic necessities. And as you get more successful, you start climbing up Maslow's hierarchy in terms of the business and the brand, and you get to that point with success where you're then at the very top and thinking very aspirationally. It's like, what's is it the tail wagging the dog, or vice versa? So now all of a sudden, so you achieve this sort of aspirational top of the pyramid status. And then overnight, the people in your brand are knocked down to the most fundamental level, the things that they need to do to survive. You are at the base of the pyramid. All right, what are we going to do to feed our family next week? What are we going to do with sales being down this drastically? How am I going to pay my employees? How am I going to pay my vendors? The most basic elements. And I think it's a true test of a brand if, when all of a sudden knocked down to the bare bones, that if they are still able to then draw on the aspirational things of their brand, or they're just going to treat it as though it's a given that we're going to maintain these things, even though we're all of a sudden fighting for survival. That's when you've really succeeded in ingraining it. It's just not another motivational poster. It's just not a piece of fluff or something you're talking about. No, you've really baked it into the DNA. And I think a lot of organizations are probably being put to that test in our society right now.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Or was it window dressing?
Yeah. Well, you can tell the difference between that window dressing and a real honest to goodness type of initiative, and that really permeates down to the actual customers, because the customers kind of rally behind you as a troop because they believe in the brand. And that's really how it all sort of comes together. So let me ask you this. This is one of our standard questions is, what does loyalty mean to you, Don Fox, as a customer of a brand? And we also like to talk in terms of a story. Like if you could think of a specific story. I had a gentleman on a couple of weeks ago. He was talking about a trip he was making from Australia to, I think, England. He got stopped in Southeast Asia, and he didn't realize he needed a visa to stay overnight. So he was panicking, and someone at the next airline, the airline he was at, which British Airways, wouldn't help him. But he told the story about how the woman from Virgin next door said, "Oh, come over here, we'll help you out." And they got him on the next flight. And he's been a loyal Virgin Airways traveler ever since. So in those types of stories, I think people could relate.
Sure.
So if there's anything that you could think of, that whether it doesn't have to be Firehouse subs or anything.
Yeah. No, I can. I mean, making it very personal, I could probably rattle off a number of instances. One that comes to mind, though, and maybe it's top of mind now because it's a disaster type situation, is I think back to 1992 and Hurricane Andrew. I lived in South Florida. I was with Burger King at the time, and my wife and I and our infant son, where our home was at ground zero of Hurricane Andrew. And I'd always been an Allstate insurance customer. My parents were for decades. And when I became an adult, that's who I got my car insurance through. And so this was our first home that we had, and they had Allstate insurance. So along comes this catastrophic event. Our house was just totaled, as was everybody. I mean, we were in the eye wall of the hurricane. And Allstate, now I've been the only company that I'd ever had insurance with. They were superb. I think back on how seamless it was in getting the claim administered and quickly giving us vitally needed funds and handling things with the contractor. And we were back in our home quicker than a lot of our other neighbors. And to this day, I've never shopped for insurance anywhere else. That's a lot of years ago now. 28 years ago. To this day, I would never think about shopping somewhere else because of that, through their care and efficiency, being there when we really needed them, which is what you get insurance for. Yeah, it's rock solid. So that one's very, very top of mind. And on a critical life event, I can think of lots of times as a consumer where it's been earned. And sometimes I'll just say this generally. While there are brands that structure loyalty programs and things, I think the highest level of loyalty is doing that thing that's not scripted, doing that thing that's not expected. That you do something for a customer not because you're supposed to, but because you wanted to and they didn't expect it. And that is really what wows people and ultimately keeps them coming back.
So that means loyalty is baked into their service. It's not points that they offer you or discounts on certain things. It's
right.
You're getting the value of what you pay for with Allstate in that case, because you don't want any issues when you have to put in a claim of they say, well, the flood waters were this, and it's just simple, easy, clean, and what you expected.
Right.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Well, even in fact, I'm a very loyal Delta flyer, and so as long as I've got a choice getting somewhere, I fly with Delta. They do a fantastic job. Customer service is great. And I had a major family trip coming up for May that we've had to scrub because of the virus. And I've got 6 transatlantic tickets that I can't use. Now I've not dealt with them on that yet. It's far off my radar screen. But my hope and expectation is when it comes time to deal with 6 canceled transatlantic airfares that they'll be quite flexible, and that's what I'm expecting because of past behavior. If anybody's listening at Delta, keep an eye out for me. I'm coming. It's just a matter of time. But but through their past practices. So I've got this expectation built up that I would hope that's going to be a seamless, hassle-free experience. They're going to recognize my past status as a customer, and will bend over backwards to make that right. Even though I'm extraordinarily sympathetic to the issues they may have as a company through this whole thing, but their prior experience and reputation does set a certain standard of expectation. And by the way, something you then don't handle something well, you can instantly undo years of great work and building up great equity. I'll just take you down to the restaurant industry for a moment. This is a story or anecdote that I've used in my own brand quite frequently. You can have a favorite restaurant, maybe it's a Firehouse Subs, and you've had years of great experiences. But no, nobody's perfect in their operation. Let's say you go in one day and you have an experience that's less than stellar, and maybe frankly just is bad.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, everybody values their dollars, and the restaurants are unique because unlike a lot of other things that you buy, there's a multitude of options, and nobody expects you to go to the one restaurant for every meal occasion. So you're always looking at numerous options. So you go into your favorite restaurant, you have a bad experience, and probably one of the first things you're saying to yourself as a customer is, "My gosh, that was so out of character for them, and why was the service so poor? Why were they so grouchy? Why was something not clean?" Whatever it may be. But it's like your favorite place. You're more upset about. You're probably thinking, "My gosh, I don't want to give up on this restaurant. We've got all this past experience." And so you've kind of forgive them for it. So you say, "Oh, well, I'm going to go back." But I can guarantee you, as a customer in that situation, you may have had 100 fantastic experiences before that last bad one that you just had. But when you go back, you're not thinking about the 100 good ones.
Mm-hmm.
You're thinking about that last one that was subpar. And if you really love the place, and if you're a loyal customer, you're thinking to yourself before you ever go in, "Please, I hope this is a great experience, because I don't want you to give me a reason to not come back."
Yeah.
So when I think we're operator of any restaurant, well, you have an off night, that you've had customers that may not have had the best of experience. You're now on a very short leash to make it right. You better be on your A game the next person that comes back. Because I would say, while they may forgive you once, the chances of them forgiving you twice are extraordinarily slim.
Yeah.
That's how fragile loyalty can be, I think.
So what does a company do in that aspect? Are they able to really listen to their consumers, their customers, their loyalists, and discern the difference between a chronic complainer and someone who's saying, "Hey, listen, I come here all the time, and this was just a one-off thing, but you should really look at this"?
Yeah, I think you treat every piece of feedback seriously. So I would, people are cut from all different cloths, and maybe there are some that are just more judgmental or critical, but that's their right to be, and you still do your best. I think to meet everybody's needs, and it's rare, but sometimes you can have a situation where you say to somebody, "Look, I'm really sorry. We've tried our best, but I can understand why you might not want to dine with us." I mean, that's extraordinarily rare. You would get to that point, but sometimes if it's but somebody way out on the fringe, let's call it, best to maybe use some candor in that situation. Again, I can't emphasize how extraordinarily rare that is. But as a general principle, no, you're taking every piece of feedback, no matter where it's coming from, whatever form of social media, review sites, through your loyalty programs. I mean, it's one of the great things about traditional loyalty programs is it gives you access and line of sight and communication with some guests that you might not normally have. I do think that in our industry, even though this is changing over the last several years, but in the earlier days of social media and review sites, for example, like Yelp, too many operators I found in the industry were dismissive of that. And I always found it somewhat ironic because I've been around long enough in the industry that I well remember the days where we were spending good money to collect customer comment cards and putting prepaid postage on it. I mean, I'm talking really old school here, but would actually be paying for it. And here we have, in today's world, plenty of opportunity to get free feedback. Yet operators will dismiss it for some reason, just because of the vehicle through which it comes to them. And I think it's very foolish. Again, it's information that in past times you were paying for. So at least take advantage of it being free, if nothing else.
Yeah, I concur. It's amazing the amount of data that's out there that unfortunately the majority of people dismiss. And I think the reason being is, they have tunnel vision focused on what it is that they need to do on a daily basis to meet their goals, their targets, their KPIs. And those things seemingly don't take precedence when they, exactly what you said, Don, they should. So let me ask you, let's dovetail into this. As a marketing professional, then, can you share with us a pain point you have when it comes to creating and maintaining customer loyalty within the brand?
I think that a key opportunity right now that we struggle with, and we're not alone in this, is the third-party delivery services.
Mm.
Because since we don't own all the elements of the transaction, and we don't have ready access to that customer, and we don't even know who they are, that becomes really problematic. And even take it to today's world. So now, because of the pandemic, that traffic in that channel has increased. Interestingly, not as much as some of our other channels, but still has increased over the conditions prior to the national emergency. But when there are execution issues, our ability, first of all, do we hear about it? And when we do we, again, it's often without the identity of the person who had the problem. So they're doing a more anonymous review or complaint about what may have happened by virtue of their delivery experience. And they're not often distinguishing between, was it a lack of performance on the part of the third-party delivery company itself, or was it something truly related back to the restaurant? In many respects, it doesn't matter. It's my customer no matter what. I just want the opportunity to try to fix that and learn from it, so that we don't make errors or can just generally improve the nature of the experience. So that's a real pain point for us right now.
I didn't even really think about that because I never really thought about the logistics of how it works when one of those delivery services does make the delivery. So I think I used a local pizza place around here. It was my last delivery a couple of weeks ago. But so you're saying that if they go through one of those delivery services, the delivery service is making that order on behalf of the client or the customer, but they're not necessarily coming to you, the customer, end user customer is not coming to you and saying, here's what I want, and I want this person to deliver.
Yeah. Depending on the particular model. So if most orders, it's the customer going to the portal for the third-party delivery service. We may have redirected them there. If we have got a feature on our website that if a franchisee's restaurant is utilizing one or more third-party delivery services, we can direct the customer through our website to it. But it's going to take them to Grubhub or Uber Eats, DoorDash, to their site, and they're going to place their order through that engine that the third-party company maintains. And that order is going to be relayed over to the restaurant. But again, we have no idea who the customer is. There's no identification link to it. All we know is, here's what the person ordered. Delivery driver is going to be on the way. And then in terms of that delivery driver appearing on time, taking the order to the customer in a timely manner, presenting themselves well in front of the guest, appearance, hygiene. That's why a current phenomena within the third-party delivery world is people having the option to just have the order placed outside their front door. Because of the situation with COVID-19, some customers don't want to have the personal interaction. I won't comment on the merits of that one way or the other. Whatever's important to the guest is what's important. but there's a lot of things again that can go less than seamlessly on the part of the third party company. Maybe if there's a quality, a temperature issue, let's say, well, the product may have left the restaurant on a very timely basis. Again, depending on the delivery driver, the distance to the route, a number of factors could come up that maybe the quality isn't entirely up to the standard that we might like it to be as the operator. That's just that's a challenge that everybody faces in the industry. And again, it's relative to loyalty. It's just not having access to that guest. I hope it's something that over time that the third party delivery companies themselves recognize as a weakness in their business model, that they're not sharing that information, and that somehow we can collaboratively work on that to make it a better experience. I think in the end, it's in the best interest of the third party delivery company as much as it is in the interest of the restaurant. We all should be working together, doing everything it takes to have the most positive experience for the guest. And I think over time we will stand a chance of getting there.
I think with the technology the way it is now, and maybe this is not possible currently, but if an organization, let's say Firehouse Subs or anyone else that's in that same predicament, has the ability to track things electronically, so to say that order 1, 2, 3, 4, left the grill at this time and it was placed in for delivery at this time, and it was picked up at this time, and then you can kind of track it the whole way.
Yeah, some of the delivery companies actually have excellent apps. I know DoorDash and Uber Eats, for example, for the consumer that's used it in real time. Now it's the interconnectivity back to the third party company, not anything to do with the restaurant, but you're seeing where the driver's at, estimated time of arrival. But I'll give you just a good personal example. I'm usually not a frequent user of third party services myself, but I have ordered a few times now. I've had great experiences with the Firehouse orders I've gotten. There was I won't name the brand. There was another company though that I ordered from, and I won't say the third party carrier either. It was one of the big three, but I placed the order. Everything's great on the transaction from a technology standpoint. Estimated delivery time, 45 minutes to an hour. So you build that in these days. Once you're a user of it, you understand, you get your order in earlier, there's going to be a time lag involved. And it's over an hour after the time. And then I get a text saying, well, your order didn't go through at the restaurant and they can't make it now. We'll refund your money in 7 to 10 days. What? Wait a minute, let me get this straight. I've got, in this case, it was for a couple of other people. So it was like a $55 order. And now, and we haven't had we haven't gotten our food. You charged me for it. Now I got to wait and see to reconcile or wait to get a refund for it. Whenever you seem to get around to it, third party delivery company. And I still have to figure out what we're doing for lunch.
Yeah.
And now with an hour and 15 minutes wasted, it is abysmal.
Yeah.
And so I won't name the company, but in that case, and by the way, that wasn't the first time it's happened. Over the course of maybe 6 months, I've had an almost identical experience with the same company 3 times.
Wow.
One time, never got a refund, and I just kind of said, I don't have time to hassle with this. I'm surprised I ever gave them a second or a third chance. But speaking strictly personally, after getting burned, 3 strikes and you're out. And on a personal level, I just won't use them. So they've got, they're great tech companies, but there's other elements like customer service in particular. At least with this one, like in the wake of that problem, there's nobody to call back. There's no place to even send a text to. Nothing. It's a big just a void, and you're having to put complete blind trust into whatever their mechanics are. For eventually, the only resolution is to eventually get your money refunded, your credit card charge reversed. It's abysmal from a customer service standpoint, and that is probably for that industry. They don't get on it. It is going to be the long term. It's going to cause really long term injury. And the irony, in some respects, is right now those companies can be playing a pivotal role in America, given what everybody's faced with. in terms of not being able to travel, and but if you still want to get food delivered and so on. So I would suspect, I haven't seen empirical numbers, but I imagine third-party delivery companies are getting a lot of new trial, and
sure.
and people will, it's the experiences they have are going to be heavily influenced by their behavior. Anyway, time will tell, but I
Yeah.
bet they improve on these executional elements.
It seems like they're taking an opportunity and they're squandering it right now, especially now is the time to shine with stuff like
Right,
that.
right.
Anyway, I know we could talk about this forever. I wanted to kind of transition just to see. I know pre-interview we talked about the final battles of Patton's Vanguard and what it can possibly teach you about loyalty in your business. Can you think of any correlations that that would relate to business in general and how you think about it?
Sure. I think when I think about loyalty in terms of the military, when it comes to the mission and so on, the primary loyalty is between soldiers. Yes, there's loyalty to country. There can be loyalty to commanders. The division that I wrote about, Fourth Armored Division, that was a extraordinary example of that. The division commander, Major General John Wood, he was beloved by his troops, and they would do anything for him. But the real bond and the loyalty is between the people immediately on the team. That they don't want to let each other down, and so it doesn't perhaps relate as much to customers per se, but I think it speaks volumes about the interrelationship between people on the team, your crew members, the team members in the restaurant, between franchisees and headquarters. So if you foster loyalty, I think internally among the peers and so on, when you've achieved that I think it breeds a certain culture, a certain attitude that then carries over to the customer, because you develop those traits that you exercise within the team, and then it carries over. I think if you see, or if you have experiences with bad customer service, hence service that is counter to developing loyalty with the guests, hey, behind it, there is not a solid team there. There is not a team that's loyal to each other and the mission, because it just takes one bad apple on a team in a restaurant to totally destroy the loyalty experience that the team tries to create with the customers. Just one bad attitude, one sour apple. So I think in that way, it's very much interconnected.
Yeah, I agree. And like you said, I think with the soldiers amongst themselves, you could have a group of soldiers in one division and a group of soldiers in another division that might be comparable. But I think it has to do with the leadership and their culture and how it permeates down to each individual unit member to think about the greater good that they're doing for not just their commander, but for the higher power.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. One other thing is very important. This does relate very much directly to customer loyalty, and again, how you handle it within an organization. In fact, at the start of this crisis, especially in the initial days, there were interesting comments that came in from guests, because I made a very early decision to close down our dining rooms. It was on Monday, March 16th. Stepping back a little bit, the day that the industry really started to suffer across the board was March 14th, that Saturday. And then Sunday, started hearing news that come Monday, there would be 3 states that were going to mandate closing down dining rooms. So I made the decision to put that in effect across all of our restaurants in the system, because it was the right thing to do. Center for Disease Control, CDC, had already come out and said, hey, we need this social separation. It came up with a number of recommendations, wasn't forced on anybody. But I knew it was the right thing to do. Right thing to do for our guests and their health and well-being, for our operators. Mind you, at first, that wasn't a popular decision. even within my own organization, people question and say, why are you shutting down our dining room when the governor hasn't come out and said we have to do that? I said, look, you're going to have to trust me. It's the right thing to do. And by the way, and I do think other states are going to quickly fall in line with that, which they did. Now virtually every state has that restriction. But during those first day or two, customers would reach out to us, and some that were not happy and question why it was. I think perspectives about COVID-19 were a lot different 3 weeks ago, even among general consumers than they are today. Well, as those guest comments came in at all times of day and night, I told my team, my guest services team, look, I will answer these myself because I'm responsible for the decision. Normally, it would be up to the franchisee, with their guest coming in, and to answer it. I said, but it wasn't their decision. It was my decision. And I don't care if I sit up all night calling or writing to individual guests. I'll do it myself because not only do I have ownership of the decision, but you have to lead by example. Mm-hmm. This is again, when it comes to your expectations within the team for how you're going to treat guests. At any opportunity I have to demonstrate to my system the type of behavior that is expected in our culture, well, I need to lead by example and put it out there for people to see. And that's just a very recent example of making sure to walk the talk when it comes to that.
Yeah. Well, again, that's it's definitely the right thing to do in terms of making the decision and then standing behind the decision and being the first one at the front lines to say, hey, I'll take responsibility for making that decision, but I did it for the greater good. And then, I think others can learn from that. That's great stuff, Don. All right. So let me ask you this before we wrap up. What sort of actionable advice could you share with our listeners that they can implement today to help them attract and retain more customers? I think I know the answer, but I just wanted to have you reiterate it again.
I'll tell you the number one thing in this environment is more than ever, be thankful for everybody who comes in the door. Yeah. Thank them profusely and sincerely. We're well known within our brand for welcoming guests. It's not a shtick or a gimmick. When people come in, we say, welcome to Firehouse, and we say it, we mean it. Mm-hmm. But as I recently told my team, look, I know that's in our DNA, our culture. Giving a genuine welcome to Firehouse is no different than Chick-fil-A saying my pleasure. And things they're baked in, not gimmicks or anything else. It's baked into the culture. But I told the team, so look, as important as that is, right now, more than ever, the most important thing you can do is thank your guests. Thanks for coming in and supporting us as a business. By the way, and we would love to see you back tomorrow.
Yeah.
That right now is probably the number one thing that everybody in this industry can do. It can do is be thankful for the guests that are taking the time to come out under these conditions and support us and make sure they know how thankful we are.
Yeah, well, there is nothing like a heartfelt thank you. And I would like to thank you, Don, seriously, for coming on the program today. I think our listeners have gained a lot of valuable insights from it. If they want to get a hold of you, what's the best way they could do that?
Hey, drop me an email, dfox@firehousesubs.com.
All right, I'll put that in the show notes, and I'll also put a link into the books in case anybody wants to pick them up.
Sure.
I want to thank everyone else for being a loyal listener and for investing some of their valuable time with us. If you feel you received value from the show, we would definitely appreciate a 5-star review on your favorite podcast streaming service. If you think you know someone else who might find value in listening to the podcast, please do share. That's how we get the word out. To reference this and other Loyalty Minute episodes, please visit theloyaltyminute.com. Enjoy and stay safe.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for your next edition of the Loyalty Minute.